What's up? Welcome to Driven Diary episode 3. Now, this is my third time trying to record this because I wrote a 5 or 6 page outline for this talk, and the first time I tried to record it, I got 5 minutes into it and decided I wasn't detailed enough. Second time I tried to record it, I got an hour and 10 minutes into it and figured I was too detailed. So I'm getting pissed off at myself, which is a good thing because it means that I'm really motivated to get this thing done and I'm kind of ready to rip through it. And so let me give you a quick background on the point of this video, and then I'm going to get into the meat of it. So when you look at a lot of the entrepreneurial or athletic influencers of the world, David Goggins, Andy Frisella, Jocko Willink, for me, they're very influential figures. They've all captured the early stages and building stages of their journey in retrospect. None of them are writing or filming how it's going along the way, when they have no money, when they have no motivation. And I draw a lot from their mindsets today. But the thing is everybody who has a story like this is talking about the past. They're talking about, oh, back when I had no money, back when I drove a shitty car, back when I lived in a tiny apartment. And that's fine that they only started capturing their journey once they became really notably successful. They're driving Lamborghinis, they've got a mansion, their life looks amazing, everybody wants to follow them on social media. And that's great, because I've drawn a lot of influence and positive education and growth out of these people. But the problem is, when I look at myself, and I look at my journey in which I feel like I'm trying to follow in these guys' footsteps, I think about man, I don't have that same fire. I'm not working 20-hour days every single day. I'm not eating ramen. I'm trying to compromise with a bunch of different priorities that are going on. I'm doing my best, but I know I'm far from perfect. And I'm not really living up to their ideal. And that's not to say that you're supposed to live up to the exact standards of these influencers. Your life and my life may never get to that point if I even decide I want it to. But the point is that by me sitting here and filming this video for you who's watching, what you're getting out of this is a snapshot of what it's like along the way. And I'm really capturing the pursuit of excellence. And excellence is those people, those influencers that we put on pedestals because they inspire us to work as hard as they claim to in order to achieve some life similar to what they have, that's full of impact, that's full of positive influence in the people around them, that's full of abundance and wealth and physical capability. These are the standards that the driven mindset lives by and that the people within the We Are Driven network live by. But what's crucial is that I want to capture this part of the journey along the way, the pursuit. And that's why this channel is called Driven Diary. That's why I think it's so valuable to be capturing these moments. I really don't want it to take up a lot of my time, but I do want to capture it. I do want to sit here and talk to the camera. I do want to point the camera at things that are around me in my life. And yeah, I can talk for 6 pages about what I want to talk about today, which is my resume up until this point in my life to get you all caught up. But I know that an hour and a half on that subject isn't necessarily the right value at this time. Do I know what's the right value even as I'm recording this? Honestly, no. If I did, I probably wouldn't be in this position of having to record this 3 times, but it's my 3rd YouTube video on this channel ever. So let me get into this resume here that I've written, and I'm going to breeze through the whole thing. Because the point here is, yes, I'm earlier in the process than these other guys who I've mentioned and plenty more besides. I'm early in the process. I'm not already successful. I'm not already 7-figure bank account, private jet living life, right? Like I'm not there yet. But I am a ways down the path. This far down the path, right? Like this starts with what it's like for me as a kid, what my college career looked like, what my postgraduate jobs looked like, what my MBA program, my graduate school looked like. And then on top of all of that, my entrepreneurial journey, and that's the key here, is what got me into the entrepreneurship world where I am today, where I do feel like I have the potential to earn a shitload of money, to be able to create a lot of jobs, to create a lot of value for the people around me and for my customers. And that's the point. Some of the things I've learned along the way here is that what I value is value. I'm not here to just get a big bank account. I'm not here to just buy exotic cars, though I do plan to. I'm here because I know that because I get wealthy and therefore have resources to solve problems easier, to provide a comfortable life, to save time and make the most of my life, I know that the only way that I can earn that is by providing value to customers who pay me. That's the only way. And so with that, that's where I'm at in my entrepreneurial journey right now as far as my mindset, as far as business is concerned, that I know that I want to add value, I know where I can add value, and I am now on the path building towards providing that maximum value at scale to people who are aware of me and willing to spend money with me. So let me start at the beginning, because I didn't have a lemonade stand when I was 5. I didn't start selling cigarettes or candy at school like I've heard the story before. I wasn't an entrepreneurial kid. I started a book publishing kind of thing when I was 8 with a couple friends, but we didn't make any money. We never sold anything. The first money I ever really made was washing my parents' cars because they told me I needed to earn my iPod. So they offered me an opportunity to wash their cars in exchange for money. And that was my first real opportunity to earn. After that, my dad gave me a job as a billing assistant for him. I helped him with data entry so that he could bill insurance companies for the medical services he's providing his clients. After that, I worked at Zeke's Pizza. I thought I'd be a professional driver for my first real job with a W-2. I worked at Zeke's Pizza as a delivery driver, and my car reeked of pizza. I was making minimum wage. And what I learned there was that I was the only one who was running back into the store after coming back from a delivery so that I could get the next one. And why did I do that? Because I wanted more tips. That's pretty much it. I learned which addresses wanted to pay more in tips. I avoided the addresses that paid $2 in quarters and went for the ones that paid $10 for a $20 pizza. And so I learned that I needed to run back inside so that I got the pick of the litter when it came to new orders. It was at that job that what I really learned was not only can I set myself apart with bringing a sense of urgency to the work, but I liked that fast-paced environment. I liked the fact that I had to get a pizza out to a customer as soon as possible, as soon as it came out of the oven. I liked the fact that we had to prioritize and look at the job board and make sure we knew when a pizza was going to come out, when the car needed to be there, how many deliveries to stack in a single trip out. And I learned that I really liked that fast-paced environment. And that kind of stuck with me as I continued into college. So college, freshman year, huge party guy, chased girls, barely cared about school whatsoever. I had gone in as thinking I might do pre-law, realized I hated all the reading, and ultimately decided to transfer to the business school because I took an economics class in which I really got business. I got supply and demand in microeconomics. So I transferred to the business school, took the introduction to business class, and realized that the only 2 classes I really would have a chance with in the long term for a major was finance or accounting, because I was good at math, not so good at all the creative stuff with marketing or information systems or management. None of that. But so after freshman year, I couldn't get a job because my parents wanted me to get an internship, but I had no major declared, no real practical classes in any upper division specific major. And I knew I wasn't really marketable as an intern candidate. So I applied to work at a lumber yard, bakery delivery driver, maintenance at a nursing home. My parents had me apply to a bunch of internships, got rejected from all the internships, got accepted to all the blue collar jobs, and ended up working at maintenance at a nursing home. But for 6 weeks of that summer, I was unemployed, and that was the last time I've ever been unemployed. I hated it. I was depressed. I felt like I had no purpose. I felt like I was not adding value to society. And that was true. I wasn't. And I was playing video games every day, just eating a bunch of shit. And I realized that that was not for me. I did not want to be in a position where I felt like I wasn't adding value to society. So I went back to school the next year, took one accounting class, and decided I get this. It's good enough for me. I'm good at it. I understand it. I like being good at things, so I'm declaring this major in accounting. So I declared the major in accounting, started going to every single accounting recruiting event that I could. I learned about everything there was to know about the accounting profession. I learned about professional development. I was able to wear a suit every day. I learned how to tie a tie. I learned how to build my resume. I learned how to stalk people on LinkedIn and get them to talk to me at events. Learned what questions to ask to impress people so that they would continue a conversation with me. And I loved those events because I learned how to network, build relationships with people, get to know people, exchange business cards. And I took a lot of pride in the fact that I had a stack of business cards that was 6 inches tall on my desk. I built up a lot of confidence during that time. That was huge for me to really take this big step towards knowing that I can build a career. I didn't go to college because I wanted a career. I went to college because I thought I needed this sort of transition period between living with my parents at home as a kid and being an adult. In retrospect, that's a terrible reason to go to college. You don't need to pay $240,000 in tuition, which it was at the time, to get this transition period. You can just go from your parents' house and become an adult. And frankly, I recommend that a lot more. I think that college isn't teaching the right things to people anymore to build them into successful, contributing adults of society. So after that, I got a job finally. So going to all these accounting events, building up confidence in myself, I ended up getting a job at a bank as an analyst, and I had to learn very quickly how to work in an office environment. I went from drinking 8 cups of coffee a day because it was free to realizing that 1 is probably enough. Business casual meant tucked in shirt, polished shoes, iron slacks. I had to work and build a relationship with the same people over time because I wasn't working in shifts with a variety of people at any given time. I had the same people working in the same office every day, and I had to consistently build trust and build that relationship so that I could be effective. This job was super easy. I got it over more qualified candidates because I was connected with my interviewer because we were both student athletes in college. And it was a very easy job, so it didn't really require a lot of like technical expertise or super high SAT scores or anything like that. But I just had to fit in the office, and that's something I learned at that time. That was the personality and the rapport you have with other people matters more than your technical skills. I interviewed for 10 different leadership conferences that is basically this sort of pre-internship role. I got all 10 because I learned after the first interview that if you come in with a script for why you want to work at that company, they're more biased to listen to you, they're more biased to accept you, and because you're making a case for yourself right off the bat for you at that company, you don't look like you're begging for a job. You say, here's what I've done the research on, and I believe that I am suited for this job and that I should be here. You're not just responding to questions, you're not being reactive, you're putting your best foot forward. And I would do this at the beginning of every single interview. They'd say, tell us about yourself. And I'd do this little 3-minute script, and it would cement the job every single time. So 10 interviews there, learned a lot about interviewing, got all 10 offers, got 10 internship offers after that, ended up selecting PwC, one of the big accounting firms, working in a slightly more selective and prestigious group because I had started my recruiting process so early. I kind of had the selection up to me and built relationships with people in this prestigious group so that I could work in more capital markets oriented work, mergers and acquisitions, deal structuring, IPOs. I didn't really just want to do audit. It didn't seem very exciting to me. So that was what I did in the winter of my sophomore year. And then in the spring, I decided to join a business fraternity. I went through the pledging process, learned a lot about how to function on little sleep, time management, teamwork, leadership. That built me up more into a professional than anything else I've done. After that, unpaid internship, working at an automotive specialized investment bank, working with a lot of big automotive companies, helping to connect them with small technology startups. It was a cool job, but it was unpaid, very unglamorous. The one thing I remember from that was that you get these things called tombstones at the end of a deal when you close a deal. And a tombstone is this little plastic trophy that identifies what you did in the deal. Now, I didn't get it for me. I had to ship it to Paris, but I realized I really liked that. I liked this satisfaction of like closing a deal. Kind of took me back to that fast-paced environment that I had before at the pizza delivery place. And I realized that what I was going into with the capital markets group was going to be similar to that. A lot of fast-paced, urgent deals, working with really smart people. I then ended up in this business fraternity creating a pledge task. And you have to go through this pledging process and interview every single active brother and do their pledge task. Now, my pledge task, because this was a professional business fraternity, not the typical, like, just get drunk and hazed all the time, my pledge task has to be more professional development oriented. And my pledge task was, tell me your dream job and I'll help you get it. What this did was taught people the interview plus LinkedIn plus networking process that I had learned over the past year and a half working in the accounting recruiting world. And I was able to place people in companies that Santa Clara University had never placed people in before, because I was teaching people how to, from a very early stage, build up your relationship capital in your specifically tailored resume with all of the different education and achievements that you've got just perfectly selected and achieved so that you fit the personality and profile of this job perfectly. I placed people that Santa Clara's Career Center couldn't place there. That was very powerful in my education and also my ability to influence people in the chapter. That also taught me a lot about leadership. Then as I took on a role as a VP of finance, I was managing a lot of morale issues in the fraternity at the time, and it was quite a challenge to really manage through that leadership just hurdle in that time at the fraternity. So then I actually started full-time at PwC, one of the big accounting firms. I'm going to skip through a lot of this. Basically, it was a lot of travel. I learned a lot from two people who are very influential in my career, Irene and Jason. If you ever watch this, I really appreciate everything you did for me. Jason taught me a lot about super analytical financial modeling, deal structuring, contract review. He basically built me into a lawyer. That was really cool to be at a very high level of expertise in really hairy, gnarly accounting and deal structuring at a very early stage in my career. That meant that people were coming to me for advice as a first year when they had 5-10 years of experience because of my ability to pick up what Jason was teaching me, and nobody else wanted to do that. With Irene, we were working on the biggest deals at the time. Uber was going public, CrowdStrike was going public. These are huge companies that required our expertise, both from the deal structuring perspective, but also from the public company readiness perspective. So it was huge at that time for me to work on those kind of deals. But what I got out of this was that the deals that I really liked to work on the most was Uber and Tesla, because they were car related. And I'm a car guy. I've been a car guy for my whole life. And because I was such an expert on cars, my ability to work with the CFO of Tesla and director of investor relations for Uber meant that I was really leading the spear because of my expertise with cars. So at that time, I kind of started getting distracted by cars. And I moved from San Francisco back down to San Jose near Santa Clara, where I had gone to school, started working on cars. So at this time, I'm really distracted at work. I was basically taking phone calls frequently while underneath a car in my garage, because I would rather work on cars and go racing on the weekends than do my job. That happened because I felt like I was delivering a lot to the company. I was working 12-hour days. I was coaching new interns. I was coaching my peers. And at the end of the year, I felt like I deserved a bit more. I had literally worked 3 times as much overtime as the next highest person in my class, my start class. But I got paid exactly the same. So I realized that this whole value exchange thing that I'm doing at this big company, it doesn't seem very equitable. I didn't feel like I was being compensated fairly given the amount of value in excess that I contributed to the company relative to my peers. Now, this is a bit of entitlement, right? I don't need to get rewarded at this early stage of my career for doing something that's really just showing up and delivering a bit more of my job than other people. And at the time, it really frustrated me. In retrospect, I wouldn't do anything differently because it's led me to where I am today, and I'm very happy with that. But at the same time, I know that my attitude at that time really struggled. So I was already disenfranchised with the company, not so sure I want to be there anymore, started looking at other opportunities, distracted a lot by cars, and then I met a girl who's now my wife. But just let me take a step back there. One other thing, tell another little bit of the story here. It was also at that time that I decided I wanted to start a career coaching business because I felt that, yeah, my work at PwC is cool and all, but I know that where I can really move the needle is with helping college students in the same way that I had at the business fraternity, with finding the job that really suits them best and then helping them get it. So I went back to campus and said, hey, I would like to work with Career Center clients and students so that we can continue to deliver the value that I was delivering before. I've developed a program. I developed something called professional success, which was this 4-pillar definition of your dream career. And then I developed a whole methodology for how to get jobs using this definition of professional success. Got nowhere with it, did not sell a single thing. So then on top of that, I decided that at this time I wanted to start working more in the automotive aftermarket because I'm such a car guy. I'm working with cars all the time. I want to do more in car business. So I went on LinkedIn, searched up automotive aftermarket, and found somebody local. I found somebody who was building an automotive social network, sort of like Facebook for cars. This was a while ago. That obviously didn't pan out. You probably have heard about it by now. But I started working with them for free. I was their finance expert. And what that really meant was that I helped them get that company into an incubator. So these were my first 2 jumps into entrepreneurship, right? I thought I wanted to contribute more value, and I felt like I couldn't really do that at work. So started career coaching. And then I felt like my work with Uber and Tesla was really cool. I want to do more of that. So I started working with my own automotive aftermarket consulting on the side. So then I met this girl, like I was saying. I'm now married to this girl, so it went well. But in the meantime, she learned on our second date that she was going to be moving to London for her MBA. So within a couple months, we were engaged and then married, and I decided to move to London with her. And that meant getting a new job because you can't work out of the San Jose office for PwC in London. So I tried to get another job, tried to find a different company to work for, completely failed. Nobody wanted to sponsor my visa. Even after I got a visa, nobody wanted to deal with the paperwork, nobody wanted to hire an international person, and nobody really liked my resume. So despite all of my success in getting dozens of jobs in the past, it did not work when I went to London. So I ended up having to transfer with PwC to London. Now the job over there was completely different, and I hated it from day one. I lasted 6 months before I ended up leaving the company, and they have a 3-month notice period over there. So I had to work an additional 3 months on top of the 6 to make 9 total. And during this time, a lot of changes came about in my career. So number 1, I applied to the MBA program that my wife was about to start at the same time that I was moving to London. So I would be starting it a year after her. I picked a name for both my career coaching business and my automotive aftermarket consulting business. So I have professional success coaching and driven performance advisors. I started writing a book on career coaching called a career building blueprint. I've sold 7 copies to date, another entrepreneurial success. But in that process, I realized that in writing out my own example for professional success, I wasn't living it. This was before I had turned in my notice at PwC, and I had written down that I should be an independent consultant to the automotive aftermarket focused on deal making. And I wasn't doing that at all. And I looked at it and I said, well, I got to start doing that. So I got another client that was trying to start a Tesla-focused racing series all over Europe with Model S's that were actually pretty cool. They had a couple demos. And then published the book. And at the same time, COVID picks up. And so we're locked in at home. My friend and I, my friend who was living in California still at the time, we decided to start an apparel company called We Are Driven. And that's because I've got this tattoo that I got when I was 19 on my shoulder that says Driven. And the word really defined my relationship with my friend, because we were both extremely hardworking guys and motivated by cars. And that, together with the two of us together, pushed us both to really work hard on our careers, on our side hustles, on our fitness, and on our car lifestyles so that we could just be the best people we could be. And I really did feel like that was a peak in my performance, was being able to live in the same house with this guy who shared so many of those same values with me. Now, we created We Are Driven a bit later, right? Like 2 years later. But the principle stayed the same. We were still talking every day. We were still maintaining that standard for each other where we're waking up early, we're working out, we're working on business, we're trying to be successful with our lives and with our automotive lifestyle. So We Are Driven was designed to sort of bring together more people in that community. And we started it back then in 2020, just stuck at home in COVID. So we did that. I invested about $600 in apparel. We printed a bunch of shirts where the logo was way off to the side. The shirts wore out extremely quickly. They were terrible quality. They smelled like vinegar, and I never ever want to do that again, but I really learned a lot from that process. I invested a lot in photography. We built a website, and I just kept spending money and not making any of it back. I sold 4 shirts, I think, at that time. Did not go very well. So after that, COVID, still working at PwC, but not really anymore. I'm in my notice period. And I had gotten my car in London modified by this shop that was just outside of the city. And I had talked to the owner a bit during my time hanging out there waiting for my car to be done. And I said, man, you're surrounded by all these performance cars all day long, tuning them, modifying them, wrapping them, fixing them when they crash, doing maintenance on them. This must be an awesome job for you. And the owner of the business said, no, I actually hate this. It's super stressful. All the employees are terrible. I don't want to do this anymore. And I was kind of concerned. I thought, why is that the case? Like, this looks like so much fun. You're making a bunch of money. This looks great. Why would you not want to do this? And so over the course of a couple of visits, I convinced him to say, yes, let's give you a chance on working with us to make this business work better. And the main focus was professionalism. We want to make this place just run a bit more smoothly. Now, that ended up being an extremely challenging 4 months of my life where I didn't get paid very well. I was threatened with a knife by one of the guys I fired. We had to call the police on that same guy who was trying to blackmail the company with incorrect information about tax fraud. Let's see, what else? Almost crashed on a few occasions, witnessed a fight, fired a bunch of people, hired a bunch of people, pissed off customers, made customers extremely happy. I was there from 8 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, pretty much 5 days a week, and spending Sundays with my wife. And that was my whole life for the summer of 2020. Absolutely loved it. COVID wasn't a thing. It was a fantastic time. And I went from pretty much zero industrial knowledge to a lot very quickly. Now, I had to leave that job when my MBA started, and I spent about a month committed to the MBA before I realized, I don't think I'm going to get much value out of this MBA. I already know all the stuff that I'm learning here, and the network aspect of the MBA is a struggle because it's still all on Zoom. So I know I'm going to be building driven performance advisors more back in the US. And the coaching business is barely taken off. I've done a couple $100 resume reviews. I had one client that was just completely unable to get a job, and it just didn't really pan out. So I've got this consulting business that seems to be working, Driven Performance Advisors. T-shirts went nowhere. So let me go all in on Driven Performance Advisors. I spent money on a consulting coaching program so that I could learn a bit more about how to be an independent consultant. And I just took the plunge. And so what that meant at the time, being in London, knowing that I'm going to be moving back to the US after the MBA to work on this company, I felt like I needed to do a bunch of research on US companies. So I started doing Instagram and Google Maps, just digging around for every single shop that I could find, knowing that I could offer value to shops. So made this list, 350 shops. I'm ready to go back to the US and visit them all and do cold pitches, basically. So I made meetings with people via Instagram. I was just DMing people casually, building up a relationship, and eventually getting to a point where I would say, hey, can I come and visit you and talk to you about your business? Some of them said no, some of them said yes, some of them, even the ones I said no, I would show up. But I ultimately came down to like 50 meetings in the course of a couple months, right at the beginning of 2021. That was some of the hardest times of my life, where I had borrowed my parents' car and decided I'm just going to drive around and visit shops. So people couldn't afford me. I'm trying to BS my way through conversations about taxes, and nobody really wants to talk about this bigger picture of like hiring, growth strategy, marketing, process improvement, cash flow management. These were key words that weren't very well understood by the audience. You know, they're all technicians, they're all wrapping cars for a living, detailing cars, tuning cars. They don't know what the hell I'm talking about. And so I ended up getting a couple customers, and then I went back to London. Lost both the customers within a week of getting there. So, no customers, back in London. On my birthday that year, I decided, fuck this, going back to the US. I don't care that I'm here for the MBA. You can go to class in person now. It's not worth my time. I'm going back to the US. Went back to the US, back to meeting with clients in earnest. I got up to about 4 clients in a pretty quick succession because of everything I had learned from the first go around. Now I've built some trust with these people, and I've gone back to the same shops, had similar conversations where they realize their problems aren't getting any better. Maybe we could use some outside perspective. So, you know, a couple $100 a month, a couple $1,000 a month. I've got some clients. Now I'm making some money. I've got, you know, $4,000 a month coming in. So soon after that, I had the opportunity to buy a minority stake in one of these early clients. And that was because one of the other partners in that business wanted to leave. So bought into a company called AlphaWorks. This was a shop in Santa Clara. They wrapped cars pretty much exclusively at that time. They did some ceramic coating, paint correction, and we're just getting into PPF. They did some window tinting as well. But for the most part, that's a pretty standard offering for one of these shops that does film installation and detailing. They still don't really have a good description for the category yet. But basically, window tint, paint protection film, vinyl wrap, detailing like paint corrections and ceramic coating. So I've got AlphaWorks. Now I'm running a shop full time, doubled my income overnight, because not only do I get a salary from running this shop, but I'm still doing all my consulting work on the side. So I've got 3-4 clients. I've got this shop. I'm working very hard there every day to continue to add processes, hire new people, fire the old people that weren't doing very well, clean up the shop, bring in better cash flow, better accounting, got the LLC reinstated, repaid taxes from 2 years ago, got the business going. At that time, the business was making like 30 grand a month total. Within just a few months, we were up to 60, 70 grand a month. So I was very happy with that. And eventually I finished up my MBA for the first year. And the first year we didn't even have to go to class. So I was meeting with group projects and doing the homework and doing the exams, and that was plenty for me because, I got the same education in undergrad just a couple of years earlier. So my rationale for the MBA up front was that I need the credentials so that I can go work at McKinsey so that then I can start my own consulting business. I thought I needed to build up this better, more prestigious resume and get a bit more experience before I started the business. But here I am like a year later and I've already got the business up and running, and now I own another business. So I guess you could say I didn't need the MBA after all, but I was already too far into it. And frankly, the student loans covered me financially for a lot of this time where I was really struggling, not making very much money. So between student loans and there's a little bit of income coming in, I'm able to pay tuition, pay rent, pay for food, but not anything else really, besides like having to fly to and from London to California on like 5 occasions in 2020 and 2021. So now SEMA enters the picture. So I was able to volunteer for the Future Leaders Network in SEMA, and now I'm having to travel for SEMA as well. So I'm getting to know people in the industry. I'm going to the SEMA show. AlphaWorks is continuing to grow. We're hiring more people. We're bringing in more processes. Customers are happy. I'm learning a lot there too. There's still plenty of challenges, but we're getting there. We're moving the business along. And going into the end of the year in 2021, we've got this good business going. The consulting's working. My income is now over $10,000, $12,000 a month even. I had bought my E90 M3. I'm starting to like appear a bit more successful, and that's bringing more respect from people. And I'm really just trying to build up my knowledge and my experience and keep earning the money along the way. So, SEMA show, things are going well. I'm meeting cool people who are doing cool things. I met this guy who was trying to start an arrive and drive track car rental program, and I thought that sounded like a good idea. Now, this was a mistake because, of course, at this time, I'm seeing a shiny penny. We've got a little bit of success going on. The shop's going well. My shop management coaching is going well on the side. But now here's something else. And I love road racing. I love going to track days. Why shouldn't I be able to enable other people to do the same? So I made the whole business model for this. I figured out how much the car was going to cost, all the mods to make it track ready, what kind of marketing I was going to do, how much I was going to charge a customer for each event. And on Thanksgiving 2021, I launched that business. I bought the car Christmas Eve 2021, and in January modified it until it was track prepped. So just going to pause there a second to say that in this time period also, We Are Driven came back and we started making shirts again. So me and my friend started making new designs and building up We Are Driven again. February comes around, 2022. Made my first hire outside of AlphaWorks. So now I'm hiring people to work on my personal business where they're doing some AlphaWorks, but they're also doing Driven Performance Advisors and the T-Hill M4. So we got all this going on now. This is kind of starting to sound like a lot, right? I'm stretched really thin. Not enough hours in the day to really try to do all of this. So I'm hiring somebody and having to pay a full-time salary where, I'm only making like 12 grand a month. So for me to be then putting like 4 grand a month into a guy's salary is a bit excessive, right? Like between his new expenses and payroll taxes and travel and all that, it added up. And now I'm sucking money back out of myself to try to invest in the future. And yes, that was a risk that I took, but I'm spread super, super thin. I continue to hire at AlphaWorks. We hire somebody who's really, really good. He brings a lot of energy, he's really excited, good ideas, takes ownership. And I'm thinking, oh, great. Now I've got like a general manager who can come in and handle a lot of the responsibilities that I had at AlphaWorks, where he's more of a leader. And I don't need to be there every day anymore. Another mistake was letting him have the reins after a month on the job. And there are some people who can come in and take that role and still be communicative effectively, still execute everything appropriately. And he was doing a good job, but at the same time, I was not in control of it. And I was really struggling to strike a balance between being a micromanager and being hands-off because I had so much else going on. between all my other consulting clients, and now I'm picking up like YouTubers and more shops, and I've got like 15 grand a month coming in. This sounds really good, right? And then the M4 business, well, I've modified this car. I'm like 50 grand into this car, and I need to start marketing to people. So I'm paying for Facebook ads. I'm DMing people on Instagram again, back to the Instagram game. Oh man, like this is not going as well as I'd hoped. I'm getting a bunch of shit from people on Facebook saying there's no way they'd pay $2,500 to go rent a car on a track for a day. They don't really know what they're missing. And, they're talking about taking their Miata out for $300 a day. And why would I pay 8 times that to rent your car that's no more fun and that kind of shit? And so on top of all this now, We Are Driven is building more shirts, and we're wearing them, and I'm on Instagram talking about what my life looks like at this time, and I start getting people asking for the shirts. So I try to sell a couple, and then I realized, in retrospect, unfortunately, because my friend pointed it out to me, that I'd kind of cut him out. And at that time I had said, I'm selling these shirts, I'm the one with the social media presence, and I'm selling these shirts because I'm selling these shirts. Like, I'm the one selling them, and I'm going to collect all the money from it. But they were his designs, and it was kind of both of our idea, and I completely cut him out. Now, that wasn't intentional. I just didn't think about it, really. I was moving so fast. I've got so much going on that I didn't think about it. And it's not an excuse, and I've since apologized, and we still talk. We're good friends. But at the time, that was a really jarring part of this story, is that, I got kind of my world rocked when my best friend, who, we hold each other accountable, we talk all the time, we blew that up because I went behind his back, completely just overstretched. I don't know what I'm doing here. And, the general manager at AlphaWorks is still going strong, and we're ready to move into a bigger shop, which is going to require shutting down for a few days, and we're making a big investment in this new shop. So it was at this time that business started struggling, and I started seeing the bank account going down and the credit card balance going up, and I started hearing about a lot of issues going on at the shop. And, I'm busy with the M4, I'm busy with We Are Driven, I'm super distracted, I'm busy with my other consulting clients, and I'm just not paying very close attention to everything that's going on. So I look at the bank account, and I'm starting to get more and more stressed out. I commit to a couple really big strenuous things, like I'm doing a track day, then I'm transporting an AlphaWorks customer car 8 hours away. It's like this $200,000 car. I'm getting no sleep. I'm really struggling, and I just feel like me and my business partner at AlphaWorks are at complete wit's end for going in the same direction. Like, I feel like I'm working so hard and not accomplishing very much, and the business is not happy, our employees are not happy, our bank account's not happy. It's not going well. And so I approached him and said, hey, look, I don't think we're going in the same direction here. I don't see the same commitment out of you to taking this business seriously that I am. Now, I'm saying this as somebody who wasn't there all the time, but at the same time, I was setting up my side of the business to run autonomously. And whether or not I was doing the best job at that, I don't really know. And that's part of the education here along the way, is that I was trying to set it up autonomously. I had done pretty well, but as far as managing morale on the whole, when you've got a business partner who's there every day with a really toxic attitude, he's not really listening or doing exactly what you want to be done, and the employees are all complaining, that was a hard place to be. So I approached him and said, we're not going in the same direction. I think we need to part ways. And at the time, we both had pretty much no money. I felt like the best way to do that would be he takes the brand that he built, and I take the business that I had built. Instead, he says, how about I buy you out? And I said, okay, buy out's the credit card debt, because there's 50 grand in credit card debt that I am attached to. It's not in my name necessarily, it's not on my personal credit, but that's 50 grand in credit card debt that I'm not going to entrust you to pay. So I'm getting detailed at this stage because it's clear that I was really overstretched. I'm doing way too many things, and I haven't even mentioned it all. I'm trying to raise money for a compound for We Are Driven to move into this physical facility with a gym and car storage and a shop and office space, and It's going to be this big thing, shooting promotional videos. I've hired a videographer and photographer, and I've hired the general manager of AlphaWorks to work with me part-time. I hired another finance guy, so I've got 4 people on my payroll. I'm traveling a lot for family and weddings, and I'm just burnt out completely trying to do everything all at once. And then I crash the M4. The business, AlphaWorks, blows up. I lose a couple clients with Driven Performance Advisors. We Are Driven isn't raising the money that I needed to raise. And it all kind of fell apart at once. So I threw out my back. Not even get into that. That's for another video. But the M4 project is now done. I'd sold a few track days. It had done decently well, but it required a huge amount of time to market without a huge monetary investment. And I didn't want to pour a bunch more money into it, and I didn't have the time to pour into it. So nothing was happening with that. I wasn't selling the track days, and I was just driving the car myself. AlphaWorks, I had taken my eye off the ball, and a lot of things had started cracking around the business. And ultimately, the business partner and I blew up, and he started coming after me, accusing me of stealing from the business. Now, that's going to be a subjective piece of this conversation, because my side of the story is that we had agreed to put these sort of expenses through the business, and he was spending similar money in the business that I was. But then he goes and says, I owe that money back because it's on the credit card, and that should be subtracted from my buyout. Now, I didn't agree with that at all. We were both spending money on the same categories in the business, so I didn't feel like that was necessary. We fought about that for months and ultimately came to an agreement where the business would pay down the credit card debt and get me out. Not the ideal situation, because I put money into the business and didn't get any out. So there went a huge income stream from me, along with losing a couple clients and the M4 getting crashed and not selling what it should be selling. So now I've got We Are Driven, and I've got this compound that's not raising any money, and now I've got no shop. So I decide I'm doing this coaching group, the Driven Network. That's going well, and it still exists today, so I'm very happy for that. I've got a bunch of apparel in my garage. I've spent like $5,000 on apparel and a trademark and fundraising and attorneys and contracts, all this stuff that's not going anywhere. So I've got investment in We Are Driven, investment in the M4, investment in AlphaWorks, all gone. But what I have left is the consulting, Driven Performance Advisors. And what I have left is everything I've learned along that pathway. So I decide that the best course of action is for me to raise money to go out and buy another shop. Turns out in a couple of months, wasn't able to raise the money. Now, 2 months, I pitched it, a couple dozen times. That was not sufficient investment. You hear about Walt Disney, Starbucks, all these things where they got rejected 100 times before they actually got a yes. I maybe would have gotten a yes at that time, but I ran out of money. So I needed things to change pretty quickly for me. And one of my clients in Driven Performance Advisors was another company called Schwartz Advisors, who I work with now. So Schwartz Advisors is a mergers and acquisitions and strategic consulting firm focused on the automotive aftermarket. It's comprised of a group of guys who have decades of experience in the industry working with automotive aftermarket companies, and are now using their expertise to help business owners sell their companies, to help private equity firms and other larger automotive aftermarket companies to buy more companies in the industry. And then we're generally just helping the industry as a whole grow and professionalize. I love working with these guys, but the resistance that I had was I don't want a job. So I'm there now as a partner. I'm part of business development, I'm part of selling work with clients, and I do feel like I kind of have some ownership in the business. It's important to me to remember that my point here is that advising is a means to an end, because I know ultimately that where I will be able to add significant value in this industry and in my life, going back to the very beginning of this, like what I'm going to make my career legacy off of, is professionalizing and growing the automotive aftermarket and creating a strong future for car enthusiasts. That's what I've always said since the beginning. I'm creating a strong future for car enthusiasts because I am very passionate about making sure that between politics, regulation, customer sentiment, cost, professionalism of the industry, all of these things are fighting against the ability for a car enthusiast to go out and enjoy an amazing ride or an amazing car show. Just enjoy what they do. Go to motorsports events. Be entertained by YouTube videos. Whatever the fuck it is, car enthusiasts deserve a damn place in this world because that's the most joy I could possibly get out of life. And to get that joy out of my own personal life and my own personal activities, out of anything, is a miracle. And I think many people, like 90% of the world, never experiences that kind of joy in anything. But other car enthusiasts know what I'm talking about. If you sacrifice in order to spend money on your car because you want to make it better, then you understand what I'm talking about. I was a guy that spent more money on my car when I lived in San Francisco than I did on rent. That was what I said when I was a kid, that I would have a car that's more expensive than my house. Now, I know that I'm not alone. I called myself the driver when I was on Xbox Live, and I'm not alone in believing in the fact that, you feel like this Paul Walker, Vin Diesel kind of character from Fast and the Furious, and so many people in my generation are built on that, where you have this fantasy of being a super awesome car guy, but also you have to make the money to get there. You also have to maintain a high personal standard to get there. So between what I'm going to do with this industry, where I take control of businesses and make them better to serve more customers, more value in the automotive aftermarket industry, I'm creating the new American dream. Because the new American dream says that we who have been born in this country, who are second generation of immigrant parents, people like myself, who, from what you just heard in this stack of 5 papers, I had expectations put upon me that I should go to medical school, that I needed to go to college, that I needed to have jobs and internships and go into a prestigious career, and that was what I was destined for because my grandparents immigrated to this country from my mom's side, my dad immigrated to this country. So I'm destined to have a better professional career than they did because I'm starting out with such an advantage over them. I've got parents who can pay for my college education, and I had a stable home where I could go to private school and drive to campus because I didn't have a school bus for my school. Now, all of that made me complacent. It made me somebody who could just get through the door, go to class, get the job, and yes, within this stack of papers, you've heard some talent, some intellect, some intelligence, some important lessons that I learned along the way that I was able to apply. But I didn't work nearly as hard as I could have, and I didn't have this anti-silver spoon hero story arc to get me here. It's not like I suffered a lot to get here in that respect. But I know from that 6-week period when I was 19 years old, where I was drinking and eating and playing video games and doing nothing with my life, I was incredibly depressed. And that wasn't the only time in my life where I felt like that. And I'll get into that in another video. But I didn't feel like I had a purpose in life, but now I do. Because not only am I here to preserve and augment the joy that I and so many other people in the world get out of cars, but I see how I can use cars and use this success in that professional career to inspire my generation and the next generation to live this new American dream. Because I don't want anybody to be complacent like I was. The new American dream says that we have capable bodies, that we do what we love, and that we are thriving with our financial success. Because when you have those 3 things, your life is of maximum impact to society, You're providing value in every way that you can. You're grateful and happy on a daily basis, and you will die leaving a legacy of positivity and positive influence on the world to people. That's the new American dream. It's not just that you make something of yourself, it's that you make something with the additional abundant resources that our parents gave us to make yourself better than them, to make more than just you of yourself, that you inspire others around you. So you have to be in the best possible shape that you can. You have to be as wealthy as you can and create value for society in order to get there. And then you have to do everything in your power to do what you love with your life. Find it, pursue it, learn about it. Don't let any barrier stand in your way in the same way that I didn't let barriers stand in my way with cars. And I will tell that whole story in another video. But that is the American dream. That is the new American dream for my generation, millennials that had parents who immigrated to this country or grandparents who immigrated to this country. You have so many resources available to you, and you need to take advantage of them and inspire more people around you that are coming up behind you. Go do the best that you can with cars, with your job, with your body. You have to. So this story that I just told, it's not this special story, right? It's not this story of lemonade stand when I was 5, rags to riches, hero story arc. None of that. Cushy upbringing, jobs given to me by my parents. I got an allowance. My first job was because my parents bought me a car and so I could be a pizza delivery driver. That's privilege. That's resources. I went to college based on student loans, scholarships, and my parents. I went to graduate school based on student loans, and now I've put myself in a position by learning a lot from my entrepreneurial journey that, oh shit, do I have a lot to learn, but I have a lot to offer. I have a ton of value that I can bring to this world. So do you. So does everybody when they set their mind to it, like I have. So go out there, figure out what it is that you're going to add in value to the world professionally, and chase it with intention, like I was teaching freshmen in college to do when I was in college with my pledge task. So, thank you for listening to this video. This is my resume. Please, when you format your resume in real life, do it in a page, type it, print it, resume paper, none of this yellow pad shit. And I hope you got something from this, because I am not special. You can see that I've still got a lot to learn, but that I'm extremely passionate about making sure that what we do as individuals with our lives is valuable and that we contribute to the world around us. And it takes a driven mindset to make it happen. You must be hardworking and ambitious. You must be relentlessly compelled by the need to accomplish your goals. So, thank you all for watching and stay driven.